welcome everybody to Between the Lines. We have 9 artists to chat with this evening, and I'm very excited about it because some of these folks are really big and they've done some really great work. And I think you're going to enjoy this. By the way, speaking of the gallery, go over. I've gone a number of times now at this point. It's beautiful. It's in the middle of a forest, and all of a sudden, you go from forest into this new world of art that Lisa has curated and does such a beautiful job there. Definitely give it a shot if you haven't done it yourself already. So, we're going to start with Nick Bruel. And anybody, if I mispronounce your name, please let me know, especially Lola, because I look at your last name and I want to cry because I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And that's a thing for me. Anyway, Nick Bruel is here. And Nick has New York Times bestsellers on his resume with his series of Bad Kitty books. If you've not seen any of his work, they're very iconic. And I'm going to bring Nick on because we even chatted beforehand a little bit about the fact that these books, though written quote unquote for children, also have something that pleases the adults in it. Take it away, Nick.
Okay, sure. Well, one of the things you have to bear in mind with children's books is that even though your target audience are children, by the very nature of their being children, those books are typically going to be read to them by adults, by their caretakers and such. Maybe a little less the case with my older books, the graphic novels and such. But I always try to bear that in mind, meaning, so I want to create books that adults will embrace in their own way, as well as their kids. And one of the models I've always used have been the Looney Tunes, which are cartoons that you can watch when you're a kid, and you can take in the humor in one way, and then you can revisit those same cartoons years later as an adult and take in a humor in a whole other level. Uh,
That
yeah.
Go ahead, keep going if you
No, I
want.
don't know if I have anything more to say about it.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
that's perfect, and that is so acknowledging of the fact that yes, someone is there, someone our age is there reading these things, and to give them some entertainment at the same time is a wonderful thing. Um, Sometimes when you think about video that goes directly to very small children, like say the Teletubbies, any adult watching that wants to like scratch their own eyeballs out. It is definitely only directed at the kids because the parents or caretakers don't need to be there. The
Right.
TV will take care of that. But if you're involved, if this is interactive, then definitely I think your approach is a very, very smart one. So I've been dying to ask, Bad Kitty, do you have a kitty that it's based on originally?
Uh, the character is not based on any specific cat. I didn't even actually have a cat at the time when I made the very first book. So she's named Kitty because I want people to think of her as every cat and any cat. She is, however, she's physically modeled after a cat that I had when I was a little boy named Zuzu. The cat was named Zuzu, not me. Anyway, Zuzu was this little black cat, black all over except for the her yellow eyes and this elegant tuft of white fur on her chest, which when I was a kid always made me think she was wearing a piece of jewelry. So when I came up with the idea for the character, I decided I would make her physically look like Zuzu.
Zuzu and Zuzu's petals, no doubt. So you have had these books in the public eye for a while now. And so there are kids who read them when they were children who are now adults. And Lisa and you and I were discussing this as well. How does it feel to know that a second generation is coming in that grew up with your books the way Lisa and I grew up with Sesame Street?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. The character's been around for a little over 20 years now, and with 2 decades, she's spanned the space of time of an entire generation. So I got an email just a few days ago from a mother who is buying my the same books that she grew up with when she was 7 for her own daughters now that they are 7. Um, and that's kind of fun. That's kind of wonderful. You create these works hoping that they will have some kind of lasting effect with the readers you engage with. It's neat to think that now they're having a lasting effect with a whole other generation of kids within the same family. That's kind of wild.
Mm-hmm. And I mentioned to you earlier, my mom, who's now 96, retired only a few years ago in her 90s as a librarian. And when I told her that you were going to be on this tonight, she thought that was the best thing ever. So you even affected people that are significantly older than you or I. And yet she found so much fun in your books when she would read them to the kids in the kids' hour and all that. It must be nice to know that. Now, one
Yeah.
last question for you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that and cat people. I kind of
Oh,
I was not a target audience I was aiming for from the beginning, but it hit that group pretty quickly, and I learned that really early on when I started signing books not to kids but to people's cats. Right. Yeah, that's kind of an audience that is constantly being tapped, but not one I aimed for. Go ahead. Sorry.
that's very funny. As an artist,
Yeah.
you've now been doing Bad Kitty. Do you ever, I don't want to say tire because you obviously have so much fun with it, but is there drawing the same character over all these years? Is there any ennui that comes in? Is there a sense, has she changed physically in drawing in that time period?
Oh
I know,
yeah,
like,
she
go
yeah,
ahead.
she's actually her physical appearance changed pretty dramatically even by the time the second book came out. You look at the see if I even have it. I do because I do this again. This is how she looked on the cover of the very first book. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have one nearby of more recent. And she's become her eyes got much bigger. She's got much more gesticulations in the way she operates and the way she moves. As to the boredom part, as to the ennui part, I've come close on two occasions to calling it quits, thinking that I'd done as much as I possibly could. Um, with the character and the stories I could tell with her. Um, I continued for two reasons. One, sometimes a story would come along. I really felt like this was something I needed to explore. But then there were also opportunities where there was talk, very real talk of adapting the cat into a streaming series or a movie. And I didn't want, something to come out on another medium without having new books to accompany it. So I decided to continue the series. Thank goodness I did, because I feel as if the some of the most recent books that I've made, and in particular, Bad Kitty Gets a Phone comes immediately to mind, and books that I'm coming out with next year are some of the strongest stories I've told. It's interesting for me to think it's taken 2 decades for me to find a way to tell the stories about these cats in a way that really satisfies me, in a way that I don't know if they did 10 years ago.
Hmm. That's fascinating. And it's a nice thing to know that you can still find newness and find growth in a character that everybody is kind of already familiar with.
Yeah,
Um,
but I have to be careful, right? Because I have to I'm creating books. Any book that I come out with next year may be the very first book that a kid has seen in the series, even though it's the 20th book. So I have to remain consistent to how the character was 20 years ago, because that isn't maybe going to look at earlier books, and I want the sort of the level, the type of humor, the level of humor, the type of stories I'm telling to still remain consistent. Um, so that's my challenge now. Not a challenge I had
cool.
10 years ago,
I
but
get
what
that.
I have now. It's interesting.
I'm going to move on to the next artist now so we can give everybody some time. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Um, Kudos on your work. It's great fun, and you've made an awful lot of people happy doing
Thank
it.
you.
So
Super.
thank you very much. Our next artist up is Matt Van Fleet. Matt, if you could turn on your mic.
Okay. Am I
You
can
are
you hear me?
on.
All right.
Yep,
I
I
don't
can.
do this a lot, so I have no idea how I'm looking. This is on an iPad, not my computer. It doesn't have a camera, so hopefully it works.
It does. It's just fine. Don't worry about it. You're coming across perfectly. So I was taking a look at some of your work. And again, my mother, librarian until she was 92 years old. I'm familiar with certain amount of more popular kids books. Your style is great. It's almost iconic in the way that you draw your figures. But what I love is when I clicked on one of them, Dance was the title of the book. Music came at me along with the story, and I was very impressed by that. For someone who is already sort of saying technology is not for me, you've got a book that's got dance music in it and movable things and octopuses and everything. And what led you to this?
Yeah, well, dance was a weird one. I wanted to do. It just kind of popped in my head. I wanted to do like a rockabilly. The text went originally to like a rockabilly kind of song, and it just happens that I don't know if you heard the actual music part of it that links from my website, but my neighbor turns out is Dave Bickler. He sang "Eye of the Tiger," and
Mm,
he was nice enough to record a version of the song for me. So if you go on my site and click that, he has this really rocked out, cool version of the song. I kind of sang it for him, and then he just took off and did the whole song thing on it. But yeah, I don't know how many people actually go and listen to it, but it kind of works by itself just with the lyrics as the text of the book. And I really wanted to tie in the mechanical movement part of it, to fit with the text and whatnot. So if they're swishing, so it was a bit of a challenge to get some of the dance move things to work with the mechanics. Several of them are pretty complicated with the beaver going up and down, and a lot of construction went into some of those.
imagine. But it does appear to be very successful. Um, what brought you into drawing for kids, for the toddlers and 3 and 4 and 5 year olds? What
Yeah,
brought you into that area?
well, I came into the whole thing a roundabout way. I didn't study art. I have a biology degree. So when I was at Syracuse in my last year of school, I started doing a cartoon strip. So when I graduated, I really wanted to get into cartooning. So I started doing as a I was working in a lab in New York City. I came to New York City to take cartooning classes and whatnot. So I was working in a lab and doing cartooning every day on my lunch break, selling, one or two cartoons. It takes forever to sell cartoons into magazines. And this was when there was a lot more magazines out there. I think it's pretty much down to the New Yorker and, it was pre-internet, all that stuff. So I basically was doing that. And I eventually was taking nighttime art classes because I wanted to get out of the lab. It was awful. Like a lot of horror stories from that. But I lasted about 9 months. And then I took art classes and I ended up as the secretary for the art director at a children's book at Grosset and Dunlap. They did a Little Engine That Could, so I was the
Mhm.
art director's secretary, typing letters. There were only typewriters, and I slowly learned how to do design and that. And since I was doing cartooning, I just thought like, oh, this doesn't look that hard. So I made a book comp, really small comp, really simple, only flaps in it, and it was a counting book, really basic novelty book called One Yellow Line. It was 1992. It's still in print. It did, fairly well. Got it translated a lot and whatnot. So I kind of stumbled into it that way, and that was pretty successful. And then my second book after that, Fuzzy Yellow Ducklings, which was the first one that had textures in it, which
I
worked the
read
same
that
way.
to my nieces.
Yeah, so that one did really well, and so I pretty much stopped working when that book came out. My first son was born, so that was the last time I really worked, and so I stayed home and just did books and took care of the kids. So it worked out well, but it was kind of a roundabout way of getting into the industry.
And yet it makes a certain amount of sense with a cartoonist's sense of saying as much as possible in one panel. In each panel, each picture has to give a story. Um, the same
Yeah.
thing has to kind of be true for kids because they're not the ones reading the print. They're looking at the pictures and all the rest of it. So you have to tell your stories that way.
Yeah, and everything I when I draw, it's especially with like dance and bedtime blitz. They're much more cartoony than the other books. One Yellow Lion and Fuzzy Yellow Ducklings and some of the other ones, Alphabet. Those are supposed to look like real animals because I'm calling them. This is a tiger, this is a llama,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. But the other ones, I'm kind of more free to make them look like characters. So they're way more cartoony in those books than the ones that are straight up teaching animal, like Alphabet and a few of the other
Oscar the
ones.
Octopus doing the calendar.
Yeah, and that's more of a yeah. The animals in that are somewhat more realistic because I'm saying it looks like a certain animal, especially in Alphabet. It's got to look enough like the real animal so that they get it. But then when I do dance and bedtime blitz, then I always have this problem because I draw that way that I'm thinking, how much clothing do I put on these things? Because I'm like, I don't want them like to have too much clothing, but then I want them to have a little because they're much more anthropomorphized. Then I'm like, are they on all fours? Are they standing up? It's like one of those weird things. Do they?
Why doesn't Donald Duck have pants?
Yeah, right. Or like I think of Arthur. I'm like, that's an aardvark. It's basically
A kid with a schnoz.
a kid with an animal head on it, but the bodies are all kind of human. So those things you don't think about till you have to like, make something dry off or brush their teeth or whatever it is.
Matt, that's a completely new perspective that you've just given me. How much clothes to put on the animal that you're
Yeah.
okay, and deciding whether you're doing a strict representation or whether you're doing a fun interpretation.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very, very cool. Um, I guess if you don't mind, I'm going to move on to next. We very much thank you for being here. These books, like I said, I read them to my nieces. So it's very fun to have you here as well. Thank you so much for being with us. And we appreciate it. We may have some questions coming in. But on the meantime, I will move over to Heidi. Heidi Matonis. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Heidi?
Yes, you are.
Great.
Yeah.
So the book we're discussing today with you is Ricardo. Ricardo the guinea pig, to be specific. A little guinea pig who lives in Brazil and takes an adventure.
Correct.
Why a guinea pig?
Well, we had a guinea pig and we loved this little guinea pig so much. And his name was Teddy, and he had a distinct personality. So I started this project probably 25 years ago when my kids were really young at the kitchen table with watercolors. I really, my preferred medium is oil painting, which obviously you're in a separate space and it's much messier. And the watercolors were kind of something I could pull in and do at the kitchen table while kids were on the floor or wherever. So this was something that was a long time in the works that I kind of forgot about and tucked away in a folder.
Really? So this was sort of something you started off on and then you moved on to do, say, more of your oils and something like that, and this came back at you? There must have been some
You
seed
know
there.
what? I've been in three different houses. It was shoved against in a little art folder against the rafter of my house. And I was kind of flipping through some stuff and I found it. And I was like, I really still like these watercolors. And I belong to Greenwich Pen Women, which Lisa also belongs to. And there are some
Great group.
children's writers in there. So I had a little bit more of a framework of like how many words a picture book should be, how many words per page. And, I redid the copy and then I had to redo like a gazillion of the paintings. But yeah, it was a pet project that started a long time ago.
And this is very helpful for anybody who's listening to us tonight. You just started talking about the process and how many words and so on and so forth. To have mentors like that, to have a group like that that supports and helps you,
Right.
sounds like it was a very valuable resource.
It really was. And actually, I have written three novels and I'm finishing a trilogy right now. And I have to tell you, I never worked so hard on 575 words in my life. Like I kept bringing it in and I kept getting feedback and every word was agonized about. It was really
I was
amazing.
going to say, every single word when you only have
Yeah.
535 means something.
Yeah. And the only other thing I just like to mention that I think is
Mhm.
so fascinating about the process was I had this original Ricardo, and he's on display with his sombrero. And I could not draw another charming Ricardo to save my life. Like I really struggled. And
Uh-huh.
it wasn't like because of the watercolors. It was because it was just like that was a special Ricardo. And so I took a piece of tracing paper and I drew in like where his eyes were, like I traced him out and I really studied the proportions and like where exactly his nose hit. And I'm sure to the professional cartoonists here, this is just like really simple stuff. But I was amazed at how much, if I wanted the same result, how much I had to really follow my Ricardo formula.
That okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it, especially when we were discussing a few minutes ago with Nick. When you repeatedly do a character over and over again, does it change through time? Um, and yet, if you're doing one book about Ricardo and he doesn't look the same in different panels, that would be a totally different issue. By the way, I love the fact that you got food involved with Ricardo and getting on the ship and everything. I wanted to mention that your illustrations, your watercolors, reminded me so much of A. Milne uh,
Um,
and Winnie the Pooh. There definitely was a certain heart tugging in that Milne does as well. And so I congratulate you on your success with that. I think it's a lovely book, and we hope to see more from you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next artist, and that would be Mike. Is it Mike Dolce or Mike Dulce?
Dolce.
Dolce. Okay, very good.
Third time's a charm.
So, writer, artist, podcaster, and an awesome dude.
I am.
I've read your site. So you are a graphic novelist,
Yep.
and you're the guy who does The Sire.
Yes. Yes.
Very iconic, really cool drawings. I was very impressed. What got you into him?
Oh man, I created that character back when I was in 6th grade, and I was writing and drawing comics since then. I drew probably, I don't know, 150, comics where you fold a piece of paper together, you staple them, and you create a whole universe. And so what I actually did, which is kind of cool because I'm working on a project for next year that's related to this, and I'll get back to it in a second. But I would basically just keep, emulating the Marvel comics and the DC comics and things like that. And then as I got older, I kept doing it, and the stories got a little more sophisticated, And then when you get in high school, I sit there and say, well, I need a better story than the one I came up with when I was, 11. And it just kept building and building and building. And all through college, I basically was just preparing to do this for a living. And the story reached a point where I go, you know what, this is pretty good. And by the time I graduated college, I had a finished first issue that I wrote and I drew. And it was probably the greatest failure I ever had because it wasn't quite where it needed to be. But I'm break first, ask questions later kind of person, and we were able to kind of reboot it in 2006. I brought on some other collaborators, focused more on the writing end, did the graphic design, did the coloring end, and figured out publishing. Now the cool part about where your question is that I'm actually right now. We signed with a lit agency last year, Greenwood Lit, and we signed a couple new distribution deals. And one of the things that we're working on for bookstores now is I'm taking all of those old comics I drew. And I read them to my kids, and my kids are like, "Dad, these are really good." My kids are 10 and 7, and so I'm actually going to pull the artwork out, digitally, and basically just recolor them so that they look more modern. And I'm going to be packaging them together as a in a dogman type of style, because it'll be comics for sixth graders by a sixth grader.
True, but I have to say something about your illustrations.
Yeah.
It's that they have a certain elegance to them that I don't see in Marvel or DC.
Yeah, that's the
And
fine art. I don't know. That's the fine art upbringing, I guess. I went to SUNY New Paltz for art, and it was, that's the kind of stuff I can do really well. I can do faces really well. I can do still lifes very well. I could do a lot of that stuff, and so I think I just kind of transfer that over into what works for comics in the best way I can do it. At the end of the day, that's one of the lessons I had to learn. As much as I had idols, artistic idols growing up, I don't draw like Jim Lee. I don't draw like Eric Larson. I don't draw like Frank Miller. I draw like me, and you kind of have to embrace it.
and that's good. I rather like it.
Yeah.
For anybody listening who may not be familiar with the Sire character, he's one of those reluctant heroes. But get this, the reason why is because he's trapped in an alien superhero costume that he can't get out of. And so he is almost forced to do good things. Does that go all the way back to sixth grade?
That, it's funny, there's elements of it in sixth grade where he literally finds a costume in his closet and just decides to put it on, and he goes out and he fights crime. And then as I got older, I said, who in their right mind would do this? So, in sixth grade, it makes total sense.
Sixth grader would do it. If I had found a suit in my closet in sixth grade, I'd have put it on.
Right. Yeah. So, I kind of had to put that angle. I said, what would we really be like if we, I don't know if anybody would be Batman and go on patrol and hang on rooftops and things like that. And so the costume is actually kind of forcing him into these battles with other superpowered individuals, and he basically has to just judge whether or not they're worthy of keeping their powers or not. And if they are, he lets them keep them, and if he doesn't, he actually absorbs them back into his own costume. So he's actually picked up some powers along the way now. And it's all culminating, though, so we just released the third issue of the latest miniseries, where he's actually realizing this whole mission he's been on, he might actually be the bad guy. He might actually be bringing forth an alien invasion, and he didn't realize it at the time. So it kind of flips everything on its head that, there's this guy who thinks he's doing, he's doing what the suit is telling him to do, and he's doing what he thinks is the right thing. And now he realizes, like, oh crap, now he has all these other forces kind of keep telling him, no, you idiot, like, you just brought the end of the world here, and now you have to fix this somehow. So that's where we're at with Aftermath, which is actually a pretty incredible moment, because it's 20 years into the character. So we've told 20 years of stories. I took some breaks in between. I've done some other work at Image Comics and Zenoscope, and I just did some stuff with Source Point Press and a bunch of other things. And I'm running my own publishing company. So, a lot in between.
I like the fact that while it's very easy to tell that this is a superhero graphic novel, you do have, your drawings are a little different from everybody else's.
Yeah.
I really very much appreciate about that. Did it take a while to get your artistic voice out there? Did you try copying Stan Lee and all the rest of them? Or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you look at all my seventh grade drawings, I mean, you could put it up against, all the stuff that was popular, and you could tell like what I was trying to do. And in ninth grade, I discovered Frank Miller, and then all of a sudden I was drawing, everything was black and darks and shadows, and and even like my college drawings were, just influences where I am. I love what Nick said originally too, about talking about how the evolution of the character. As artists, we're always evolving. I'm not going to say we're getting better. Nick is always getting better. I don't know if I'm always getting better. We're always evolving and changing. And I think there's definitely, like, every 6 months, you draw a little different. Your hand works a little different. Everything changes. So, again, I don't know if it's for the better all the time, but it definitely finds its way out there.
Cool.
For sure.
Well, as the little boy who used to wish he was Captain America,
there you go.
Please don't let him get too evil.
No. Well, he doesn't know he's evil. That was the beauty of it. He thinks he's doing the right thing. So I think that's the fun part.
Very cool. Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on next to an old pal of mine, Betsy Franco Feeney. How the hell are you? Is she on yet?
I am. I'm here. Sorry, I just had to unmute myself. Hi, John. How are you?
I am very good. It's nice to see you. I almost pulled out pictures of you and I doing shows together that Joan Brennan did back at St.
Oh my
Catherine.
gosh. Please.
I
Oh,
have those
no, no,
pictures. I'll send them to you privately.
please do. I would love to see them.
I have to say that when I looked at some of your work, I had seen some of your fine artwork, and of course, I've seen your photographs because
Right,
that's what a lot of people around here know you for. But
right.
your work with Christine Lavin,
Amen.
you took her songs and made them into these wonderful, wonderful worlds that we got to see. Um, how did the two of you come to collaborate?
Well, I've been an illustrator for ooh, I've done professional illustrator for like 40 years or more. And so after doing many books, well, a half a dozen books with traditional publishers, and when you're just an illustrator, I shouldn't say just, but when you are the illustrator and not the author as well, you never get to decide what you're going to be illustrating. So I started dreaming, oh, I wish I could choose, what to illustrate. And so part of my dreaming was at the time that I was just infatuated with Christine Lavin's music. If you
Okay.
don't know it, people, look up christinelavin.com. Like Linda Lavin, but it's not Linda, christinelavin.com. She is one of the most creative, just imaginative people, very, very accomplished singer-songwriter. So I just emailed her as a fan. I said, "Hey, I have this idea for one of your songs. Do you want to do a book together?" And the first one, Amoeba Hop, is actually one that she said she was very, very, accommodating and said, "Hey, science teachers, ninth grade science teachers are using that song in their lessons. If we do a book, that would be great. Then they'll have a visual." And that's how the first one came about. And we ended up winning an award from the American Association for the
Association
Advancement of
of
Science.
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 I was
Now,
so
this,
impressed with that when I read that because
thank
STEM
you.
research is so important and encouraging kids to get into it, especially female kids to get into it, is a great thing. I looked through that and I absolutely loved it. Keep going.
Thank you. Well, so the second book, you're saying I illustrated her stories. The second one, Hole in the Bottom of the Sea, is actually a song that she wrote kind of for me to do a book. It wasn't one of her songs that she already had published as on one of her albums. And it was during the Gulf oil spill. And we all know what it looked
Okay.
like on television with all that horrible oil surging through the water. And so we all had that image. And what she did was at the same time, she was flying to a concert, to a concert over the wind farms of the Finger Lakes of New York. And with her creative mind, she ended up coming up with a story that is a hopeful tale of how clean energy can help save wildlife that was hurt by the Gulf oil spill. And she did an amazing job. That I must say myself, and I illustrated it and got okay, and that got a review from Kirkus. Those of you in publishing, you know Kirkus and how they're pretty tough on books. And the one blurb from the review is, if the future of the planet is in the hands of our children, then reading books like this might be a wise idea. So
And
I'm
that
very, very,
you should be very proud of that.
I
Um,
am.
it's not just art, it's not just something for children to learn with and be entertained by, but also really pointing out in a way kids can understand our environmental problems. You've always been very, very interested in the environment, as I
I
recall.
I have been. I was a recycler, composter. My I'm on my third Prius hybrid. That's now a Prius plug-in hybrid. This
Nice.
one. So yes, for a very long time. And so when it happened that Christine got me even more into science books, before that I was doing a lot of bear books. Nothing wrong about Bear, James Bear
No,
and everything. But it just really it started melding together by what I want to do in my life, which is what, you know, just encouraging children to go into science,
I
basically.
think that's absolutely great to use art to do that. As somebody who was both a science nerd and a theater nerd, who wound up doing, going for my arts degree and I did get accepted to Rensselaer Polytechnic. Science matters to me. And it's really wonderful to see someone like you who is your artwork is so accessible. Kids love it. And to get them encouraged to see the sciences as maybe a career, but also just to be aware that we're kicking our earth around. Great stuff. It's so nice to see you. Without the lens in front of you, because lately that seems to be I'm hosting and you have a lens. Uh,
Yes.
but
Right.
always good to see you. Thank you very much. And I got to tell you, as a hometown boy, I am so proud of
Thank you very much,
you. You're
Tony.
very
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank
So
you.
we're going to move on to Sam. Sam Wedelich? Wedelich? Wedlick.
Wedlick.
Wedlick. Got it. Finally. Okay. So Sam, Chicken Little. I love these. I have to tell you. Um, you convey so much through simpler drawings. I looked through a number of them, and the facial expressions on what really are more like line characterizations are really quite astonishing. Um, what brought you to minimalize down to that area in your illustrations?
Hmm. Um, I love drawing faces. I think for me, cartooning is fun because of the economy of line. I'm always thinking very deliberately about every mark I make, and so I feel like the more I can do with less, like why not? I
Mm-hmm.
really want to convey emotion. So the fact that that was your take on the simple shapes means I did my job.
You did do your job. Because, I mean, a trip to the store and your other stories, those are much more filled out illustrations, and they're great. They're really good. And they're very evocative of my own childhood. With the librarian mother growing up in the children's room of the Blauvelt Library was, I saw so many well illustrated and a couple really poorly illustrated. Yours almost took me to Harold and the Purple Crayon. Um, that certain amount of very minimalist and yet so imaginative. I'm very, very impressed with that. You've got a series of Chicken Little books.
I do. I do.
Is there, and this is from the business point of view for anybody listening and everything, were there any rights on Chicken Little? That's a public domain character?
It is. It's a folk tale, so it's a really old story. Of course, like legal department had to check on all that before we did
Right.
it.
That's what.
Yeah. But no, I mean, that's why you see a lot of like fractured folk tales or retellings. I think these
Mhm.
stories have a timeless quality in the way that they talk about maybe a moral or teach a lesson. And I thought it would be really fun to reinvent that for kids now. So,
I understand. I've always wanted to write an opera on Stone Soup.
there you go.
If anybody remembers the children's book Stone Soup, that lesson hit me so hard as a little kid that you need to share for everybody to do better. Um, that I always thought, there must be something we could do with this. So it's in the same vein. This is something that is in public domain, and you were allowed to run with it. That's cool. That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
What about Chicken Little attracts you? The fear or
I think so. I think this idea that, well, for me, it's funny. There's a longer publishing story behind it, but the idea was that I kind of came into the industry backwards and ended up needing to write a story that I thought I was only going to be illustrating. And
oh,
so
surprise.
the idea to rework a folktale felt like a doable first step for everyone. And I love Chicken Little because the sky is falling and misinformation, and that feels very relevant to this age we're living in, and important to talk to kids about critical thinking and not believing everything you hear. But to make it really feel like it was kid centered, which is super important to me as a bookmaker, I was actually inspired by my son, who was 2 at the time that I was doing it, and he has a big sister. So I was constantly having to tell him that he couldn't do all the things that she was doing because he was too little. To which he would say, I am not little. And so it got me thinking maybe
I'm
Chicken
in
Little
bed.
is tired of being called little.
Oh, okay.
So that's
That's
actually how my first book starts out, is Chicken Little saying that she's not little.
that's
Um,
very cool. But
yeah.
also, so is the awareness of what's real and how to listen correctly and maybe not take everything as told to you. What a time period to be doing that in.
Hmm,
Very smart of you, I think. Thank you very much for that. I
you're
have
welcome.
3 others I need to get to, but great stuff. And again, those Chicken Little drawings, they're so much fun.
Thank you.
And they evoke so much with, like I said, simple lines. I love the fact that the glasses come off the side of the head. It just great. Thank you. And by the way, they look like your glasses. I'm just noticing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to Franklin Silva and the Maury books. Franklin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. Um, so you are the illustrator of the Maury books. Um, I find the whole concept of these fascinating. You're teaching kids financial basics at the same time that you're giving them a great book for them to enjoy. And I believe your partner is the uh, author that does the writing of the book, and you do the illustrations.
Yes, yeah, that was
Nice.
that was yeah, was basically our deal, you know. So
Hmm.
he's the idea, and he knows for long how I drawing or do everything. He do classes for artists about financial literacy, and he
Hmm.
was thinking maybe I was thinking for a long time do something for kids. And he knows I do arts or visual art or drawings or digital art. And he just said, oh, maybe we can have a deal. So make the illustration, just writing and have fun, and that's it. And, so that was exactly what happened.
It's it's a great series, and for anybody who hasn't been out there and doesn't have any kids that they need to read it to, starts off with a book called A Bell for Murray's Bicycle, and then moves along into several other stories. Is it challenging to do illustrating character work as opposed to I'm looking at your beautiful art on the wall behind you? Is it challenging to bring down in scope um, to that kind of illustration?
Yeah. I believe we keep developing one kind of style, so I need to turn a little bit my style, because they do something absolutely very different. But he was a little scared. The rhythm was a little scared to bring me in this mission because I do more surrealism or things more very expressive or talk about social stuff or things like this. And I cannot make that grip, because that's for kids. So that will be very complicated to show something a little more. I don't know, not it's not sure I can say darkness, but put this kind of style I have for the kids book. So
Hmm.
was working and changing that a little bit to make more interesting for kids or for adults too, more funny, happy. Yes, the first book about the bell that takes too longer for developing everything. The main character, the parents, the friends. We want to include friends. I think basically we decided everything like which kind of will be the world or the atmosphere they have, the whole resources human have, or so we decided all of this, you know. So I start to bring like examples for him, like we can do this, we can do that. So some examples were really funny because I do those kind of arts in my live stream, and people already see and give you some opinions. So we have fun all the time. So I bring something very not properly to use any other styles or shapes, colors, everything. And there was in the both mediums was like digital and the sketchbook by hand also. So I bring a lot of material for him, and he's just we starting picking stuff. So I like this, I like that, I like this, and I start to put it together. But yes, I believe the first one or the first pages was very complicated in the beginning. That take too much time before we understand what we are doing. But after that, so the other books was basic, easy in some point, you know,
Hmm.
because it just needs to do the interpretations about the pages or the words, the sentence. Yeah, so the this first one, I don't know, that's take like around 10 months, the time I was working to develop everything or the word they supposed to be will live or you know everything or the other characters or you know and style.
I have to compliment you because looking behind you at your work, your fine art
Oh,
work, you
yeah.
make the transition really well.
Ah, yeah.
Um, I would never have expected until you came up that this was the other side of you. This is
Yeah.
brilliant, and you really do the dichotomy extremely well. And congratulations on that. And I know Maury's been fairly popular. Awards like all over the place. Story Monster, which is a nice group to get an award from in 2024. Thank you very much for being with us. I have two more artists I have to get. It's 7:53, so I'm sorry. Gonna go through. Um, so Cate would be next. Cate McNider, McNider. Cate,
McNider. Hello.
how are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
So Escape Velocity,
Mm-hmm.
your book of poetry that you also illustrated.
Yeah.
Which came first?
The painting.
And
Well,
then you write the poem from the painting.
it's hard to say because um I was writing the poems from 2010 to 2023, and I think this painting was somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
But
So
I
sometimes
know
one inspired the other, but it's really a joining of the two then. It's not so much, oh, here's an image that I did, now I'll come up with a poem for it, or here's a poem that I did and now I need to come up with an image. It's much more integrated.
actually it was this was a second choice. It because I have a lot, I don't know, however many that I was looking at to apply to the cover. So actually it's a second painting in a series. Um Open you are the living book is the first painting. So this is turning the page in the living book. So it's all about going inside
Okay. Now,
and
being
reading yourself.
being a published poet myself, that almost frightens me a little bit. Um,
What
my
part?
when I was publishing it was back in the 90s, and much of it was very dark because of the AIDS crisis that was going on and the number of friends I was losing. I can't imagine what imagery might come up from. Uh, God, it would look like dystopian New York City. I think
I
um,
remember.
it would. You're a very brave woman to be able to put those two together, especially when there's self introspection involved. What led you to this?
Um, my own healing process.
Okay.
Actually, it was a necessity. For example, my first collection, Separation and Return, I was writing the poems, or the poems were coming out, and they were kind of like a missive from my unconscious self. So it was my unconscious self was communicating to me through these poems.
Okay.
So, and this cover came from an actual experience. This was the image of myself
Okay.
when I was getting a bodywork session. I was like this red bird with this very
Wh-
long human leg, and it was very difficult to fly.
I would imagine.
So, um, yeah, it's all very organic and from my body. I was a dancer and movement, yeah. And so movement was very essential in the working out of myself. You know what I mean?
Hmm. I do. And because our movement becomes a poem or a piece of art in and of itself. Um, your book cover there shows movement without movement. I always find that impressive when someone's illustrations can make me see that it's doing something that it really isn't. It's flat. It's a two-dimensional piece on a piece of book cover, and yet at the same time, I saw that bird trying to take off. So,
The name of the actual painting is called Fierce Intent. So she's got a whole lot of energy behind that.
very cool. Very cool. I have to get the last artist in. I'm so
Yes,
sorry,
please do. Thank you.
folks. You're very welcome, and thank you for being with us. Lola, okay. Am I going to even attempt this? Lola Koundakjian? Am I?
Koundakjian.
Thank you. Lebanon and Armenia.
Hmm.
You
Yes.
don't like life easy, do you?
And then New York,
And then you, well, oh, come on.
one of the most fascinating places on earth. How lucky am I?
Very. So talk to me about the moon in the cusp of my hand.
It's a collection of poems that are in two parts, traveling around the world and traveling in the art circles or reading circles of New York City. Uh, those poems are only my English language ones versus previous books
Okay.
being Armenian, then translated into English and by somebody else into Spanish. There's a story as to why that happened, but I had a little bit of writing experience by the time that book came out, and I got extremely lucky that a Spanish language publisher picked it up. So very grateful for that.
And you didn't do the translation on that. Now, when you have it in English and when you have it in Armenian,
Mhm.
is it a literal translation or because you speak both, is it much more of the translation of the ideas than necessarily word for word?
A little in between. Of course, they're two very different language groups, so I can't do literal. They're not as close as French and Spanish, for example. But what is in, and there are idioms and things like that that you cannot literally translate, of course. But I have done my own translations between those two languages, and then a professional picked up the Spanish part. Various different people I've worked with. Yeah,
That's very cool.
thank you.
Your perspective, how much of it stretches from Armenia, Lebanon, New York City? What a combination of three amazing places, if sometimes scary places.
Yeah,
Um,
yes.
does one or the other come out at any time, or have you really become an amalgam of those three worlds?
Depending on what's happening around the world, what I'm reading in the New York Times, there are times when I am influenced by a port in Beirut blowing up, for example, or a bunch of Japanese walking up the hill for for a fall hike and then dying because a volcano erupted. So those things touch me a great deal, whether they're my own experience or things that I read in the paper. Lebanon comes up because of the Civil War, Armenia because it's my heritage, but a lot of it is my day-to-day life in New York City.
Very cool. I know Armenia has always had its troubles as well. I happen to have been watching something about the Armenian genocide just last night.
Yeah.
Yes. The strength of the Armenian people is kind of amazing. The same with the Lebanese people. But I was taken with the fact that Armenia that they even still exist, that they're an ethnic group that is still there and now has its country back again because so many were exterminated. That
yes,
the strength of that culture really kind of amazes me. And I'm sort of glad that a lot of them wound up in New York City, that we have a diaspora from there in New York, because I love my New York City. And I love the fact that people from every single country in the world live there, and every language spoken on earth is spoken in that city. You just make us a lot stronger. You're very, very welcome. I'm looking at the time, and I'm so sorry to have everybody got kind of condensed there. But we thank you very, very much for being with us. I would love to have lunch with you sometime. You look like a very interesting person.
I'll take you up on that. Yes.
There you go.
With pleasure. Thank you, guys.
John, I have a small surprise, and
okay.
it's a wonderful one. So we have the only coloring book artist in the exhibit with us right now. I wasn't sure if she was attending, but I'm so glad she's here, John. Her name is Matilda Rose. And if you would speak to her briefly before we go, I would really appreciate that.
Sure thing. Hello, Matilda.
Hi there. How's it going?
It's going very, very well. Coloring books. I love coloring books. Please forgive me because I'm not prepared.
Oh, that's totally fine. Just happy I could be here, honestly. So thank you.
Are they coloring books for children? Are they coloring books for adults? That being a thing these days. Are they in between?
It seems to be kind of in between. Yeah, it's funny because when I had started making them, I wasn't really sure if it was going to lean more towards like a children's space, but typically with my art style, it does lean towards that like kind of genre of things. But a lot of adults ended up purchasing them and being like, no, it's for me. It's not for my kids. So
I have several friends that color regularly as a way to de-stress.
Yes.
As an artist, creating a coloring book, in a way, the art isn't finished. You're allowing someone else to interpret yours and fill in the colors. And yes, I always stay between the lines. I'm that type, as opposed to my friends who would be all over the place. But is there any feeling of collaboration with the people who are going to be coloring your books? Or is there more of, I left it a little bit unfinished?
It's kind of, it's interesting because I had made certain pieces and just kind of put them in a collective. I was always told to eventually make a coloring book because my art style just tends to lean towards this like harsh contrast between lines and stuff, literally. So
that makes sense.
I was like, you know what, I'll just put all these things together and see what comes up for me and see how I can kind of problem solve myself, like resolving the space, I guess, in a way. And I thought it was also fun because I feel like humans think so symbolically. And I love the idea that you can take this kind of symbol image and rework it however you feel, like whatever colors you want to put in or whatever thing you want to include in the space. I left a lot of large blank areas in the coloring book specifically for that. Plus, if something is too filled out with like certain lines and things, it actually stresses me out to look at it. So I was like, you know what, this is kind of a nice, safe space for everybody to de-stress.
Okay, that makes complete sense. You just said something that actually leads me. I wanted to give all of the artists one final question I had been planning on, and yours is the perfect way to lead into that. And that is about iconic things. How is it that children see a locomotive train that has not been on the tracks in over 100 years and know it's a train, or a dial thing with a handle is a telephone, or any breed of dog. If you're used to a Great Dane and you see a Yorkie, and yet we all know what they are. And kids seem to know it very early what they are. A choo-choo train. Trains don't go choo-choo anymore. They don't even come close to that. Icon, is it built into us, or is it something that we learn from artists like you, all of you? Anybody feel free to jump in, by the way.
Well, I personally feel like, yes, I feel like it is in a way like built into us to kind of, as we grow and our brains develop and stuff, that we're kind of built into, in a way, categorize some things, but also just kind of see the world as certain symbols of things. I was just looking at some historical videos recently talking about how jewelry was made long before we even had like structure in our lives or like societal things. And it showed all these different symbols to show what your status is, or what, like, there's so much to the idea of having a symbol that you find like represents you or represents something. I feel like it just makes things so much easier for the brain in a way. That's how
Right.
I feel. I don't know how everybody else feels.
When one goes back, say, 40,000 years to some of the cave paintings, and you notice that if there's a flickering fire, they move. Icon imagery apparently has been with us for a very, very long time, just as you said, the jewelry. But it is astonishing to me constantly that it seems like we don't need to teach it. It just happens. Good night, Betsy. And anybody else have anything they want to stick in? And it looks like Cate wants to. Unmute yourself, Cate. Oh, you're saying goodbye. Okay.
I was just saying goodbye to Betsy.
To Betsy. Okay, sorry about that. Anybody else? Franklin, Nick, anybody want to pop in on Icon?
Yeah,
I'm not leaving. I just wanted to put that in the chat. Sorry.
Cool.
Yeah, those iconic things, I think it's probably because everybody read the same Richard Scarry books, like Things That Go.
Uh-huh. Nick, you said you wanted to say something too, I believe. You unmuted.
Yeah, I'll just say that I think it's easier to create something iconographic that's iconic if it's readily present. Like a house can just be a box with a triangle on top. A tree can be just a brown line with green on top. If it remains more or less the same from generation to generation, from year to year to century, I think kids will, for the most part, recognize it. And trains are, big things with wheels on rails. If you want to date yourself as an illustrator, put in something that is technologically modern. I did a book called Bad Kitty Gets a Phone. I mentioned it earlier. By the time the book came out, the phone that I gave Kitty had already gone out of date.
That's
televisions are the same problem. So there is that risk of trying to create something that might be iconic now, but you have to recognize whether it was iconic 10 years ago, because if it wasn't then, but by the 10 years from now, it's going to change to the point that it's unrecognizable.
Well, that's the risk, right? Isn't that the fun part too? Because I'm working on a book right now where I'm working on two different books. One is it takes place in the future and it's all AI driven. So I'm actually trying to figure out, okay, if the scene takes place in Chicago Union Station, what will it look like 30 years from now after we've accelerated our learning, and will I get it wrong? And there's the risk. I mean, it'll be right now because it's, like you said, it's here, but I mean, a year from now, 2 years from now, it could be completely wrong. And it's fun to come up with things like that. It's fun to kind of throw your hat in the ring on and be a predictive analyst in a way sometimes.
Sure.
Very cool. Thank you, everybody, for all of your thoughts. Thank you for being with us this evening.